Good morning to everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for accepting this presentation. As you can see, actually, I've chosen the topic quality of experience. Within brackets, I actually put network access. I was actually just wondering whether this is the right title as such, but I will explain why I put like that. So I'll be covering a few, just to give my background, I'm actually we are in two hats, representing Paraqum Technology, and also I'm from a university. My permanent job is a university academic. So I'll be talking about a few topics, starting with because the QoE and QoS are really defined by ITU, and some definitions, and whether we can actually consider network access as a utility, and some other statistics from latest digital report to highlight why we need to consider quality of experience, and some analogies and stakeholder concerns when we are talking about quality of experience, and the recent trends in cloud computing and how it actually affects quality of experience, and I think a bit of a controversial topic as net neutrality, and some of the operator challenges in trying to meet this quality of experience, and some of the probable challenges coming in the future as well. And finally, conclusion. So why quality of experience matters? Like, I mean, just to give us a few examples. From a technical community perspective, actually, we always talk about quality of service. As the operators try to actually give, or any service provider for that matter, try to give a service at a particular quality level or service level. And however, the real measure of that particular service is how the user experiences that service. So we need to actually look at from the user's perspective, even though the operator or the service provider might be trying to actually provide the best possible service as such, the users actually might look at it from different perspectives. And particularly when we are talking about the quality of experience of networks, it's primarily due to bandwidth issues, bandwidth limitations. And sometimes, even if the bandwidth actually is available, it might be due to the, for example, like latency issues. Latency might be a bit high for some other applications. So let me start with the ITU definitions. So as probably all of you know, quality of service is collective effort of service performance, which determines the degree of satisfaction of a user of service. That is how ITU defines QoS. The similar manner, QoE is defined as the overall acceptability of an application or service as perceived subjectively, very importantly subjectively, by the end user. So this is not an objective measure, not something that you can really measure as such quantitatively, but something that the user really feels. How do you really feel about the service? And so when you look at that overall experience, what factors contribute to this user's experience? So many parameters actually are contributing. So it is not possible to really measure it in objective manner as such. But there are, having said that, there are actually research being conducted in different areas how to actually measure, or at least some degree of measure that we can compute that will correlate with the user's experience. So that would actually enable a service provider to actually, without really asking the consumer, to set certain quality of experience thresholds. And so look at the ITU, the ITU, the definition, basically everything starts from whatever the service requirements, service levels expected by the customer. And then the service provider is offering out that QoS, and what is exactly being achieved, and or what is delivered, and what is the received QoS by the customer. And obviously these four quadrants, if you look at it, if you overlap all of them together, and that is basically the user is receiving what he or she is expecting. That is the ultimate goal of a particular service delivery. So service provider is happy, the user is happy. So I talk about basically network access as a utility. Why do I actually say that? Now, we know that, electricity and water, for example, are essential utilities, essential services for us to actually, for our daily lives, whether it's individual or corporate or any organization. And any lack of quality or non-availability of these essential services actually would create a lot of problems for our day-to-day lives. Now, today, we consider network access for granted. Basically, we only notice there is an issue with network access when something actually is not accessible. For example, Facebook is not accessible or YouTube is not accessible. Then only you are worried about the network access. And whenever you go to the smartphone or your laptop, you expect the network to be available all the time. So for whether it is actually defined as a utility or not, for all of us, actually, we consider it as a utility as such. And if that is a utility, then what would be our responsibility as service providers to deliver that essential service? So that depends on, like, for example, if you look at the water and electricity, it is widespread. Its use is actually so diverse. Everything imaginable requires water and electricity. So if you look at the evolution of internet over the last 30 years, we celebrated the 30th anniversary last year. And the internet actually is perceived by so many users in so many different ways. And if you look at what is internet, I mean, it's a basic question to ask, but primarily for information retrieval and for entertainment purposes and e-commerce and shopping, business, research purposes, education, okay, gaming, and whatever the services that are coming in the future. So if you ask somebody what is internet from someone, I mean, that person will define internet as, okay, that is something, the most important thing that he or she is accessing. For example, somebody who is really gaming oriented will say the internet is basically for gaming. And so it depends on who you ask. And your quality of experience depends on what you are using at that particular point of time. So we need to consider the end applications or end user, what the end user is doing in order to really understand the impact of quality of experience. And if you look at the post-millennials, I mean, they are already always on the internet. And they will look at the quality of experience from their own different perspectives. So their own perspectives basically being a digital native. And few statistics just to quickly, the total 7 billion population, we have about 70% actually covered through internet. And most of them, another interesting statistic, actually, on average, every person in our world actually spends 6 hours and 42 minutes online, okay, doing something. Okay? This could be screen time, but doing something. And if you look at the individual country statistics, that's also very interesting, because if you look at some advanced countries like Japan, they spend the minimum number of hours online, just 3 hours, 3+ hours. Whereas Filipinos, they spend 10+ hours online. That is nearly half a day actually spent online. So if you ask, I mean, for them, the lack of network access will be a bit of a disaster for them. And so there are a lot of reports predicting that 70 to 80% of the traffic in few years to come will be video. So everybody needs to be prepared, service providers as well as the other service providers, for these incoming changes. Already changes are happening. Look at Myanmar situation. Already 39% of the population actually is covered, and this is rapidly increasing. So the quality of service matters, that's very true, but at the same time, I think people's expectations are rising as well. So the moment the people's expectations are rising, that means you are actually looking at the quality of experience. So these are a few statistics. I will actually not go through all of them, but you can see the growth actually is very high. And another interesting actual observation is that the mobile penetration and the internet penetration is the same percentage. So these are some of the statistics from the latest report on Myanmar. So when you talk about the quality of experience, I would like to actually take your attention to some of the analogies. I mean, basically, we are talking about limitations on our network access. There's the ideal example to actually look at is road network. And if you look at a situation like this, very congested road like this, okay, and all of us, all the vehicles inside this road actually are users. And there are some other stakeholders as well, whoever is managing this road. and whoever who has actually invested on this road to build that road. And all these three stakeholders are actually important. I mean, what will the users really, the users or vehicles in this road will be experiencing? If you look at, there'll be concerns about productivity because they spend most of the time on the road. Okay? Every time that they spend on the road actually will be a lost like time. And uncertainty, because you have uncertainty in going from point A to point B. How much time does it take? The cost of time. And return on investment from the stakeholders. And the security. I mean, every type of vehicle is there. You do not know who is actually in this road. And the visibility is not very clear. I mean, all these things actually affect the quality of access or quality of experience of these users. So what do we need really? So if you look at it, so these are the stakeholder concerns. Users have their own concerns, and people who are providing network access or the road access have their own concerns as well. And those who are administering or managing the roads have their own concerns. So these three stakeholders' concerns need to be taken into account when you're looking at a quality of experience. And the solutions, obviously, intuitively, it's increasing the bandwidth or increasing the widening the road or making more regulated or making them more disciplined type of behavior. But this actually gives a temporary solution, and because this is something like that you would like to see. But it has been proven, like whenever you actually increase the road, widen the road, there'll be more vehicles coming into the road. Similarly, when you improve or increase bandwidth, the more users will be coming to the road. This is particularly true in this part of the world, South Asia, Southeast Asia, or the East Asia, because there's a rapid population who is still not connected to the internet. Whereas the Western countries already have a very high penetration, and the bandwidth is probably enough. But in this case, this part of the world, I mean, the higher the bandwidth, still you will get actually more and more users coming in. So this is actually newly widened road actually will not really create a permanent solution as such. So you can see the road traffic or road congestion as visualized. You can easily visualize because you see that visually. But how do you really visualize the traffic congestion as such, like network traffic congestion, not road traffic congestion? So this is an example I want to highlight. This is actually taken at my own university. And during the daytime, actually we set some policies for YouTube to be not blocked as such, but YouTube can be viewed at only at 1 Mbps, or basically at a lower resolution. Okay? And once the university time is over, basically from 8:30 to 4:30, we release these policies. So we have 1 Gbps access to the university. And as you can see there, as soon as the policy is released, the YouTube traffic dominates. This is like almost like a container actually, number of containers moving on the road. So all other traffic actually gets blocked. Okay? So this is basically visualizing what would happen when certain applications dominate your bandwidth thing. For example, what is been predicted actually 70 to 80% of the future traffic will be video. So video will be dominating. So how about other applications as a result of all these video applications? And the other trend that everybody is talking about is cloud computing. So this is an irreversible trend as such. Everybody actually is moving to trend because there are so many advantages. But what about the quality of experience? So are we really thinking about the quality of experience? Because you are moving something that is on your own on-premise network to a cloud service. So you expect the same quality of experience that you would have actually, for example, like you are working on your word processing application in your desktop. And how do you actually feel the same thing working in the cloud, like Google Docs or Office 365? Will you get the same quality of experience? And so this has to be looked at carefully as well. So everything is moving to cloud, but how about the quality of experience of these applications, what the users are really feeling? So this is the perception. Access to cloud, I mean, I'm taking well-known cloud providers like AWS, Azure, or Google. And your expectation when you move to cloud is you believe that, okay, you have a unhindered, no obstacle-free access to the cloud. That is your perception. How you feel like there's no obstacle at all. But the reality is that you are actually sharing your internet pipe with the cloud applications and also with your general internet applications as well. Okay? So there's a sharing of your bandwidth for your cloud critical application, your business critical applications are actually in the cloud. So one traffic actually goes there, and at the same time, you're actually doing your general browsing as well. So part of the business critical plus other activities. So the reality is this. So you do not have dedicated access to cloud as such. So the quality of experience depends on to what extent you have available bandwidth to these different cloud providers. At the same time, sufficient bandwidth should be available for other applications as well. This is a topic, again, basically a bit controversial, I guess. Net neutrality, basically the idea is like you should not discriminate between any services, that you should not actually put any throttling of bandwidth as such. But the problem, sorry, this is not visible. It says with net neutrality, the ISPs may not intentionally block, slow down, or charge money for specific online content. That is what the net neutrality says. You cannot discriminate on any services. Okay? And if you do that, without net neutrality, the ISPs can actually can make use of any other traffic shaping or whatever the bandwidth policing to make certain applications perform better. But the questions that we need to ask ourselves actually, okay, can these two coexist? In different certain scenarios, they might. Okay? So diversity of expectations, because as I told you, the internet, the perception of internet depends on who you ask. The user is using internet for different purposes. The applications actually differ, and depending on the applications, I might be actually for a particular time, let's say after hours, I might be watching a 4K video. So I want the best quality of experience for that particular video. So there's so much diversity in the expectations. And how do we really meet these diverse expectations of different users? As I said, over time, we have actually moved from slow access to the fast access. So the users' expectations are really rising very fast. Okay? And they are not tolerant anymore. And so if the quality of service actually is not an ideal measure to judge the service received by a user, so we have to actually look at another measure. So how do you really measure the quality of experience? And best methodologies to meet the required quality of experience. And also at the same time, the ISPs or the operators don't have infinite amount of budget. So they have to operate within their budget as well. So how do I maximize whatever the investment that I have already made and still deliver the required quality of experience to the end users? That's a challenge for every operator. And other question actually, again, basically I'm asking you, the net neutrality and the quality of experience, can they coexist? Okay, that is an interesting question to ask. And a measurement of QoE, as I said, that as defined by the ITU, it is a subjective measure. But how do we measure? Like, typical way of measuring is technically called the mean opinion score. That is, you actually ask each and every single person, okay, how do you really feel about this particular service? And then you take an average. Okay? And this is an exhaustive way of actually checking the quality of experience, and it will be very costly operation. Okay? And you cannot actually ask a million people how they feel about, let's say, for example, of their YouTube experience. So there has to be a measure, there has to be a way to compute this quality of experience in some way. And there are a lot of research, as I said, is currently being done. If the operator who is in the middle between the service provider and the end user can do some computation of quality of experience, that would be a really breakthrough, because that will actually indicate what the user is actually receiving and what the user really experienced. And there are some guidelines, but these guidelines are not really sufficient for measuring the quality of experience like it's in a true scale. It's a very active research area. And at the moment, there are certain rating systems done by individual providers, proprietary, but they don't really reveal their methodology or computational methodologies as such. So this is an open question to be answered. So looking into the future, I mean, is the future is going to be bleak, or like it's going to be more challenging? Like with 5G coming, the 5G actually talks about 1G access speed to your mobile. And they talk about 1G access speed only from your mobile to the base station, not beyond that. So that is, you might be having, for example, today, a 20 Mbps downlink bandwidth from base station to you. But are you getting the 1 Gbps all the way up to the internet? No, you won't be getting that. So there'll be a lot of bandwidth. There is a sudden narrowing down of the pipe as a result of 5G. But there are other developments in 5G as well that try to mitigate this one. For example, like moving the services to the edge of the mobile networks. And so with 5G, not only the access speed actually increases, there's a massive amount of IoT devices coming in as well. So how does that actually contribute to the bandwidth issues? So these are things that the operators need to be aware, and operators need to look at, okay, what are the different ways of achieving this. And high access speed, this 1G access speed, for example, like the resolution that we are talking about might move from 4K to 8K. And the virtual reality applications, augmented reality applications actually will increase. So all these things are very bandwidth consuming applications. So how do we really cope up with this increased bandwidth consuming application in the future? So whatever we do, like when we talk about digital infrastructure, I think the quality of experience, real quality of experience depends on these three factors. The predictability of your experience, the consistency of your experience, and also reliability. And these two, the first two actually combined will give you the reliability. And if you get reliable, if you get predictable, consistent experience of a particular service, then obviously you tell that it's a reliable service. So if you can achieve that reliable service, I think we will be achieving our end goal, that is providing the right quality of experience to the users. Finally, basically the meaningful digital infrastructure basically means like providing high quality of experience to all the users. So in conclusion, so rather than actually making QoS as the basis for providing the internet services, I'm suggesting that the quality of experience should be used as the basis for providing the service, because that is what really the users want, and what the users really the experience or feel. And the operators or providers actually who achieve this quality of experience will find their customers happy, and also customer retention basically will be easy as well. And the other question to ask is whether the assurance of quality of experience, is it for all users, it is a realistic expectation, or is it something that is doable? And also, just increasing the bandwidth actually is not going to actually help. So there has to be some other methodologies to use this. So we have to look at different techniques. At the same time, as I said, one of the most important things is the investment that you have already made. So how do you really make sure that you still actually get sufficient returns to run the operation, at the same time providing the required quality of experience that is perceived by all the users, that is expected by all the users. I hope that this short presentation enlightens you about few things about quality of experience, and that actually concludes my presentation, and I would like to welcome any questions. Thank you.
Any question, please? Question? Question? Yeah.